Before humans developed reason, before logic and science, before written laws and systematic thought, how did our ancestors explain the mysteries of life? The rising sun, the thunderous storms, the birth of rivers, and the stars that blanketed the night sky? How did they make sense of life, death, fate, nature, and existence itself in a world without philosophy? This is a journey into the age of myth, the age of gods, and the age of imagination, a time when stories were the oldest form of knowledge, the earliest models of explanation, and the foundation from which all later thought would grow. From our very beginnings, human curiosity was insatiable. Long before Thales of Miletus asked what the world was made of, long before reason became a tool for explanation, there were myths, stories passed down orally through generations that wove the natural world together with the supernatural. These early narratives were not mere fictions. They were deep attempts to explain reality itself, to give life to the unknown, and to create meaning where mystery reigned. Myths were human attempts to understand reality, the first frameworks of a pre-rational mind. In the fertile river valleys of ancient Mesopotamia, around 3000 BCE and earlier, people lived between the unpredictable waters of the Tigris and Euphrates. Every flood could be both life-giving and deadly, every storm a reminder of forces beyond human control. In this land of irrigation and city-states, the Sumerians and Akkadians looked to powerful deities to interpret these forces. The great god Enlil was believed to command the winds and the storm, while Aa presided over water, wisdom, and creation itself. The mythologies of these people portrayed the world as a tapestry of willful divine beings, each influencing natural phenomena and human fortunes. These gods explained not just weather or harvest, but human fate, kingship, and justice in a world governed by capricious but patterned forces. To the west, in ancient Egypt, along the life-giving Nile, a river that flooded predictably each year, bringing fertility to the land, myths grew out of the rhythm of nature itself. Here, gods like Ra, the sun god, carried the light of day across the heavens and into the underworld, only to be reborn each morning. Osiris, once slain, became symbolic of resurrection, renewal, and the eternal cycle of life and death. Isis, his devoted consort, embodied healing and motherhood. In the Egyptian imagination, creation myths tied the cycle of existence to divine acts, giving meaning to the seasons, the stars, and even the journey of the soul after death. These stories shaped the people's understanding of their world and their place in it. Across the Mediterranean, long before Aristotle or Plato walked the streets of Athens, the early Greeks lived in a world deeply saturated with myth. Before the birth of philosophy, poets, such as Hesiod, whose theogony dates to around the 8th century BCE, told of a cosmos emerging from chaos, where primordial deities like Gaia, Earth, Uranus, Sky, and the Titans gave rise to gods even more powerful on Mount Olympus. These myths were not mere entertainment. They were the Greek explanation for how the world was ordered, how families of gods interacted, and how human traits, such as cunning, valor, or jealousy, originated among mortals and immortals alike. But Egypt and Mesopotamia were not the only cradles of mythic imagination. In the distant reaches of the Americas, indigenous cultures crafted their own profound creation myths. Mesoamerican civilizations, such as the Maya and the Aztec, told of cosmic struggles in the age before time. The Maya creation story preserved in the Popol Vuh speaks of gods shaping humans from maize, tying human life to both the earth and the food that sustained it. For the Aztecs, gods sacrificed themselves to light the fire of the sun, and human life itself was seen as woven into the ongoing drama between celestial forces. These narratives, passed down by storytellers and shamans long before any written codex, grounded everyday life in the sacred actions of divine ancestors. Journeying northward among native peoples of what is now the United States and Canada, tribal cosmologies vary widely, but often share a deep sense of interconnection between humans, animals, and the natural world. Many traditions speak of culture heroes and spirit beings whose deeds shaped rivers, mountains, and the very stars. For some tribes, a trickster figure, often manifested as coyote or raven, brought fire to humans, taught them the ways of survival, or explained why the world looks the way it does. In these stories, humans and nature are bound in ongoing dialogue, not separate from the forces that shape their world. Far across the seas, in Scandinavia, the Norse told tales of a world forged from the body of a great primeval giant. Ymir, the first being in Norse cosmology, was slain by the gods Odin, Vili, and Ve, and from his flesh they created the earth, from his blood the seas, from his bones the mountains. These myths, alive with giants and gods, conveyed a worldview in which the cosmos was literally fashioned from divine struggle, a cosmos where human lives were part of a larger mythic drama. In Africa, too, many peoples hold creation stories that speak of beings on the edge of existence shaping the land. Among the Fon of West Africa, Ma'u, a creator deity often paired with Lisa, shaped the world with a rainbow serpent, Edo Huedo, whose undulating body became mountains, valleys, and seas. In some versions of the tale, earthquakes and tidal waves are explained as Edo Huedo, shifting his immense coils beneath the earth. These stories gave meaning to the unpredictable forces of nature, binding human existence to sacred origins. Across the Indian subcontinent, centuries before formal schools of logic emerged, the early Vedic tradition offered creation hymns that spoke of the universe's mysterious beginnings. In the Rig Veda, one hymn questions whether even the gods know where creation came from, or whether anyone can truly know. These early oral traditions tied the sacred to the origins of life, the cosmos, and human society, forming the spiritual backdrop for later philosophical inquiry in the Indian tradition. Similarly, in ancient China, creation myths centered on figures such as Pangu, who emerged from a cosmic egg and shaped the world by separating the sky from the earth. Such tales connected human experience directly to divine essence and cosmic action. Across all these cultures, myths served not only as explanations, but as social frameworks. They taught morality, legitimized leadership, and created shared identity. Myths offered tales of heroic ancestors and cautionary tales of hubris. They explained why seasons changed, why crops flourished or failed, and why life and death followed certain patterns. Myths were not just stories. They were early models of human cosmology, offering meaning and coherence in a world that often seemed arbitrary and cruel. Myths also shaped rituals and cultural life. In ancient Mesopotamia, temple rituals and annual festivals honored gods of fertility and harvest, weaving communal rhythm with divine favor. In Egypt, the death and resurrection of Osiris became central to funerary practices, life after death, and the idea of cosmic order. Among the Norse, seasonal rites and clan stories carried the memory of divine events into communal identity. In many indigenous societies, creation stories were taught alongside survival skills, embedding practical knowledge within a sacred narrative framework. In every case, humans used myth to explain the unexplainable, to bridge the gap between what they could observe and the reality of forces beyond their control. These stories tried to answer the oldest human questions. Where did we come from? Why are we here? What happens after death? What powers move the sky and the earth? Myths were the earliest answers, built not from logic, but from imagination, pattern, and symbolism. Yet, even in these earliest ages, there were the first cracks in mythological explanation. In ancient Greece in the 6th century BCE, individuals like Thales of Miletus began asking fundamentally different questions. Thales, often regarded as the first Western philosopher, sought explanations based on natural principles rather than the whims of gods. He proposed that water was the fundamental substance of all things, not because a god commanded it, but because it was a unifying element in the natural world that could be observed, tested, and rationalized. This marked a turning point. an attempt to explain reality without reference to divine beings or supernatural narratives. Thales' questions about the nature of reality opened the door to a new human project. Philosophy, a systematic attempt to explain the world through reason and logic rather than myth and story. Where mythmakers saw intention in thunderbolts and divine will in sunrise, early philosophers saw patterns, principles, and natural causes that could be understood and shared through argument and thought. From Thales' ideas grew a tradition of inquiry that demanded evidence, consistency, and explanation rooted in nature itself. This shift did not erase myths overnight. Myths remained powerful cultural forces, shaping religion, art, literature, and collective memory. But philosophy and later science offered alternatives, frameworks that asked not who but how, not which god but which principle could account for reality. The move from myth to reason did not abandon wonder. Rather, it redirected it into questions that could be debated, tested, and refined across generations. As we reflect on this journey, it becomes clear that the stories our ancestors told were more than fanciful fables. They were the first intellectual tools, attempts to grapple with existence itself. They laid the groundwork for the questions that would lead, centuries later, to logic, experiment, mathematics, and the sciences that now define human inquiry. Myths taught early humans to think deeply about the world, to recognize patterns, to imagine unseen forces, and to share explanations across generations. In our own age, where we explain reality through physics, biology, and cosmology, it's tempting to forget that every reasoning mind once stood at the edge of mystery. When we look back at myths, whether Mesopotamian epics, Greek creation tales, or indigenous origin stories, we see not primitive ignorance, but early attempts at explanation grounded in curiosity, meaning, and human experience. Understanding these roots enriches our appreciation of human thought. It reminds us that philosophy, science, and reason did not emerge from nowhere. They were born from the same human urge to understand reality, to connect dots across the sky, to find patterns in nature, and to tell stories that make sense of a world that was once inexplicable. If this exploration of ancient myths and human curiosity resonated with you, subscribe for more journeys into the origins of human thought and the history of ideas. Share this video, and in the comments tell us, which creation story or ancient explanation surprised you the most, and why? Your curiosity connects us to the thinkers of every age,